Welcome back to the Master Your Mindset podcast, my loves. I am so excited for you to hear today's conversation. I had Ashley Badman on, who is such an incredible mindset coach now, but she takes us through the evolution of her story from the experiences and story that she had from a childhood and how she became a mum at 18 and had her second child at 19. She tells us about the toxic relationship that she was in that just wasn't serving her and how she had dreams. She had dreams and goals that she aspired to and she wanted to follow, and how she actually made those happen with the way that her story was going. And so I love her story. It's super inspirational because we're going to really gain a lot out of it. Like, I know you are going to be inspired by it. She followed her passions. She wasn't afraid to change her mind. She wasn't afraid to take risks. She is someone that has always had this mindset of, I'm going to get what I want, whatever that is, even if she didn't even know what that was. She is someone who is not afraid to try anything. Something that I resonated really well with her, we related so well on this, is that at some stage of our early life, teenage life, early 20s, we both were butchers or we worked in a butchery. And then the other part was she was a police. She was in the police force and I was a firefighter. So I resonated with her so well on these points where we both just are so willing to try everything. We're not afraid of anything. And whether it works out or not, we're ready to give it a red hot crack so that we can continue to move forward within our evolution in our story. So you're going to really love this episode. I know it. I really, really know you are. You're going to gain so much from this. And without further ado, let's just dive straight in to hear Ashley Badman's story. Welcome. I'm Jessie, life and mindset coach, here to help you level up in your game of life. This podcast will deliver game-changing life advice, power play pep talks, and move-making energy. I'm all about life optimization through mindset growth and taking radical action. Welcome to my world. Let's play. Cool. So, hey, Ash, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hello, my love. I am beyond excited to be here. I am so grateful that you have me on, and I can't wait to talk more about, my story and hopefully help someone else.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. So I know bits of your story, but I do want to hear the full story. So I'm very excited about that. But like, just to get into it all, I would just love to know, for the listeners especially, like, who is Ashley Badman? Like, I'm very curious to know, like, who now is Ashley Badman?
Oh my God, I love that so much. I love that when someone asks that question and it sounds so simple and you start to think to yourself, you're like, wait, who actually am I and how do I describe myself? And it ends up being like the hardest the hardest question
Yeah.
ever. Um, so who am I? I am a mum. So I have two kids. They are 12 and 10 years old. So I had them very, very young. I had them when I was 18 and 19. I am a business owner, so I am very, very fortunate to run a successful online business. My online business is my full-time job, and I feel like it is also my passion. Like, I don't just run an online business because I get to spend more time with my kids, which of course is brilliant, and I get to live a life that feels more free, which again, of course, is brilliant. But it's also something I am wildly passionate about, and I feel so lucky because I feel like so many people search for finding the thing that they're passionate about in their life, and that whole saying, like, when you find what you're passionate about, you never work a day in your life. I feel so grateful that it's like I am passionate about what I do, and I feel grateful every day to wake up and be like, I'm living according to my values. I feel truly me, and my business is an extension of me. And how that kind of started was I was actually in the police for 4 years. I would say around 4 years. I am the worst at timelines, so bear with me. But yeah, I was in the police around 4 years. I ultimately decided to leave the police and start my business, which originally started as a nutrition coaching business. And I did that for 3 years, and it was honestly like a whirlwind. I literally had no idea what business was. I had nothing, like no background in business. I didn't know anyone that did online business, whatever. I didn't even have a name for it. I literally said to my partner, I was like, I thought I was inventing nutrition coaching. I was like, oh my God, like no one else does this. Look at me go. It's like, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people online doing this well before you. I was like, oh my God, I've invented something. No, you haven't. Like, there are loads of people doing it, but it was actually that it was so good to be naive because I feel like half the problem with people starting online is comparison. So for me, it's like I had no one to compare myself to. I thought I was like inventing something. So I just got to do whatever the heck I wanted. I just made it up as I went. I enjoyed the journey. I struggled in the journey. I made mistakes. I did all the things. And then I got to a point, like 3 years into my business, where I still felt passionate about helping women, but it didn't feel like I was helping them in a way that I truly was meant to be helping them. So I was helping them obviously lose weight. I was helping them with what to eat. I originally started doing meal plans, which I would like not do now. And I just felt like everyone that's coming to me is lacking confidence. They don't feel connected to themselves. They lose weight and they still don't feel that confidence. I'm like, there's more that I can be doing. There's more that I can be helping people. I'm having this same conversation with women. It is always about mindset. What is
Mhm.
mindset coaching? And then I kind of dived into that and that started to be successful. And then I have people DMing me that were coaches online being like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you running a successful business? How are you getting clients? Would you mind helping me or mentoring me? And I was like, okay, like that could be fun. And I would love to be able to help other people experience what I've experienced. And the more people I help grow an online business, the more people that get helped in the world. So I did that. And then that ended up taking off as well. So now I'm a mindset coach, I am a business mentor, and I'm a partner and a mom, and I have 3 dogs. So that's me, and a guinea pig.
Oh, guinea pig.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've got a
I
guinea
love
pig
this.
too.
Okay, I'm so excited to get into this because I'm wondering how did you so when you were in the police force, well, first of all, actually, let's just back back. I feel like I love hearing the evolution of where you've sort of been to where you've sort of come in terms of the work that you do. And hearing you
Yeah.
in the beginning say that you just love what you do now and like everything is like feeling like really flowy and good and you're helping and supporting women and all of these things, it just sounds so beautiful. Now, I'm curious to know, like, in terms of the confidence, did you always have the confidence, especially when you were saying you're back in the police force? Were you always this happy? Is it just that the fact of you were evolving into new passions, or is it a case of like you sort of felt that you needed to do something different because you just weren't happy where you were? Like, I'm very curious to get into your story first, starting off with like the police and how that all went for you.
Yeah. So I love that question so much because absolutely not. And I feel like it's so easy to see people in their success and think that it was always like that, or maybe they have something that you don't, or they have some sort of confidence that you don't. And I was honestly, and I'm so open and honest about everything to do with my mental health and things like that, but I was so anxious. I was so depressed. I was so disconnected from myself. I had no idea who the fuck I was. Like, if someone had asked me, and I feel like I answered that question okay, like who are you, Ashley, even though I said that's a hard question to answer. If you had asked me that 5 years ago, I would have had nothing to say. There would have been no answer. I actually probably would have got embarrassed or nervous, or I wouldn't even be in this position because I would have never trusted myself to be on a podcast, to put myself out there, to tell my story. I was so insecure. And I think that started probably in high school. I would say I was someone that was like gaining weight, losing weight. I was bullied quite a lot in high school. I was bullied quite a lot in primary school. My upbringing, even going back even further, was very traumatic. I had a severely like alcoholic dad, like not just like a dad that drinks lots of alcohol, like, the proper abusive, addicted, just like angry kind of a person. And my upbringing was just chaos, like pure chaos. Then into high school, I lived in government housing. So I grew up in government housing. So the environment that I was in, the people that I was around, it was normalized to not really achieve a whole lot in your life. And that's not to say that people in government housings or bad upbringings don't achieve things. It's just like when you're in that environment and you see people abusing alcohol all the time and abusing drugs, and you see domestic violence is normal, you start to believe that that is the world. And it's hard to believe that you will be any different or that you will achieve any different because you've never seen any different. So for me, where I am now to where I was, it in my mind sometimes I'm like, how the fuck did this happen? How did I get here? How was this even possible? And it makes me so emotional sometimes when I really reflect on where I was to where I am. And then fast forward a little bit, when I was around 17, I met my boyfriend. he moved into home with me, which when I look back at that, I'm like, what the fuck were my parents thinking? And funnily enough, we fell pregnant and I became a teen mum. 6 months after I turned 18, I gave birth to my daughter at 18 years old. And I was in that relationship for 8 years. And that was also emotionally abusive, physically abusive. And again, because when it's all you know, you tend to attract what you know. Because I was so insecure, because I was so depressed, because I was so anxious, I had such low self-worth. I'm going to attract someone that can hold that over me. So I attracted him, and then I had no confidence to be like, hey, this is fucked up and I shouldn't be being treated like this. And then anyone who's experienced that, you would know in a relationship like that, your self-worth just gets lower. You think it can't get lower, and then it gets it gets lower. Um, and then from there, oh my God, I feel like my story, you guys, it's so fucking crazy. Do I need to write a freaking book? Because there is just so much that has happened. But basically, I was like, okay, I want to feel good about myself. I want to feel confident. After the kids, I'd gained like 25 to 30 kilos. So I did not look like I look right now. And I had enough with that. So I was like, I'm going to lose weight. That's going to be my answer. I'm going to be this confident fucking queen because I'm skinny, and skinny is the solution to everything. It solves all of our problems because we're female and that's what we believe. So I got skinny and I developed an eating disorder and I didn't feel any confident. And I had a shit relationship with food. And there was just so much going on for me. And ultimately, what ended up happening, the reason that I joined the police was because when I was in high school, I was like, that's what I want to do. I'm going to be the person that helps other people. I always had this innate desire that my life was meant to be dedicated to helping those who struggled, because I fucking struggled so much and I saw it so much. So I'm going to be the difference. And that's kind of what it was going to be. And
Mm.
my partner at the time, the not great relationship, he was in the army and he was like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. You don't help. All you do is be a stay-at-home mom. And I'm like, I have goals. I want to achieve things. I'm like, well, what if you leave that and I join the police? And that was the only way he really agreed to that, because he kind of benefited in that. So I moved from New South Wales, which is where all my family was, to Melbourne. And I joined the police, which in itself then I still didn't have that much confidence. I still was a pretty anxious gal. But I still did the thing anyway, which when I look back on, I'm like, thank you to you. Like, you didn't have all the answers, you didn't feel super confident, but you were just trying your best and you were just trying to make your dreams and your goals, come to life. And I joined the police. So I was in that for 4 years. Then there's the whole story of that. So when you ask me, was I always this person? Was I always this happy? Absolutely fucking not. This is so far from what was my normal.
But what I love about your story, well, what I love about what I've heard so far anyway, is that it sounds like that you've always had this sort of inkling of like, I'm okay. So you know when like you have your story, because everyone has their stories, right? And then like some people can go off the rails and some people can go the other way. I feel like you've always been that person that's just determined to do better, be better, feel better, all of the things. So it doesn't really matter. And I love your evolution of your story, and it makes so much sense to me where it's like, okay, cool. Well, now I've fallen pregnant, like we have these two kids now. Cool, like now let's solve this problem. Let's figure out how you can start being happy because you're clearly unhappy in the army, and how I can start like living out my goals because otherwise I can't, because I'm a stay-at-home mom right now and I can't do anything about that. Well, at that point. So it's like really cool because now hearing how you're like, okay, well, I really want to get skinny. So like now let's just get skinny without having the whole relationship, like the healthy relationship with like food. Well, I'm assuming actually, with like in order to become skinny, in order to have like that goal that you were having. It makes sense that you then moved into like nutrition coaching. And then I love the evolution of like, it totally makes sense why you moved into mindset coaching as well. And yeah, all of it. So I really, really love that. For people at home, like especially, the whole reason like I love to hear people's stories is because I really want them to see that, look, wherever they are in life, it doesn't really matter, but like, look, I'm not someone that likes to settle. Wait, does that make sense? I don't like to settle. Like, I don't necessarily want to settle. Even if my life feels good, even if things are feeling good, it doesn't necessarily mean that it can just like stay good. Like, I'm striving for great. I'm striving for thriving. I'm striving for like such a great life. So for someone at home, whether they are not liking their job or whether they desire something different, whether they know what that is or not, or whether they're okay with whatever's going on in their life, but they know that there's more for them. I'm curious to know from your own experiences and what your advice would be for them and like what they could do next from exactly where they are now in order to get that more, to be that more, to feel better within themselves. Like, yeah, that might be quite a big question, but what's sort of your advice around that?
No, I love that question so much. And I'm very similar and like the same as you, where it's like, I don't want to settle. And I truly believe that has been a part of my being from when I was little. I don't know what it is. I don't know where the fuck it's come from. I am very, very grateful for it. But I feel like it's just been a part of who I am. And it's like I didn't necessarily need things modeled to me to know that I could do things or achieve things. But I didn't necessarily, like, I know a lot of people say, like, you should have the bigger goal or the bigger dream. Whereas for me, dreaming big or having the bigger goal seemed so unrealistic that that would not have helped me personally. For me, it was just like, take the one step at a time. What can you do in this moment that you can actually action? What step can you take? And I think the other thing that I massively like, if there's one thing that I can help people with, it's like, trust yourself. If you are feeling something, if there is something inside of you, whether you're happy, whether you're miserable, whether you like your job, whether you hate your job, whatever it is, if there is something inside of you being like, I just want more, or I want different, or I want to experience different, or I've just changed my mind. Like, as humans, we don't cut ourselves enough wriggle room or slack that we can also change our mind. You could have picked a job that at the time was the best job in the world and you absolutely loved it. But that doesn't mean that you can't change your mind years later. And sometimes we can be so busy shaming ourselves for like, well, this is the decision that I made and this is what I should stick to, that we don't listen to that inner voice. And I don't know what you want to call it, but for me, I didn't realize at the time, but I call it this now. It's like I just was able to listen to my intuition. I didn't need external validation. I didn't need it to make sense. And this is what we sometimes wait for. We feel that we want to be doing something. We feel that we want to create change. We know that there is something more for us, but we don't know the outcome, or we don't know how to exactly get there, the steps to get there. We don't know what it exactly looks like. So then we're too scared to make that move. And I think if there is something that you can, do today, it's giving yourself the permission to make moves without knowing the outcome, without knowing what it's going to look like, and knowing that even if what you kind of want to happen, even if that's not the thing that happens, that's actually okay. Maybe you're going to land somewhere different, but you were meant to land somewhere different. And can you trust that you're a resourceful human? And that's kind of something that I always told myself. It's like, if I make this decision and worst case scenario, it all goes to absolute shit. Like, it's the worst fucking decision I've ever made. It's so terrible. I'm actually going to be okay. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make a different decision. I'm going to make different choices. I've got myself. I've got my back. And it's just making that first move. So for me, it's like intuition, listen to yourself, trust yourself, do not need to know the outcome, because the other thing with that is like, it's actually impossible. You are never actually going to know the answer. You are never going to be able to predict the outcome. We can't do that. We can't predict the future. You have to just trust in yourself that you're going to do what's required of you and that you're going to make it work no matter what. And that, I think, for me, is just a mindset that I don't know if I've always had or I've built over time, or through a traumatic upbringing, I've built the resilience to just be like, well, it can't be worse than that. So surely I'm just going to keep moving forward, or what it was. But that's what it felt like for me. Can I listen to myself? Can I trust myself? And can I just go and do the thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that so, so, so much. And I always say as well, like, if someone has some sort of desire to go off and do something, and I always use this in terms of like their job or their career or whatever for some reason, but this could be anywhere. But like for your job, for your career, like if you were someone who is a school teacher, let's just say, and you are also someone who has a desire to be, let's take us, like online coaches, online mindset coaches, but you're worried and you have all this fear and you have all the things, but it's like, okay, cool, you're really unhappy in your job as a teacher, but what would be the worst case scenario if you just tried? Oh, the worst case scenario is that I would just get another teaching job like somewhere else. And that's what it is. So it's like, okay, well, how does it feel to be living out your worst case scenario? And it's like, okay, boom, like that's it. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Yes,
I'm gonna go
mic
do it. I'm
drop.
gonna try. Yeah.
Fucking mic drop. I'm like, yes, I love that so much. And I actually, two things, like, that was brilliant. I love that. I'm like, yes, everyone just like replay that because it's awesome. But the other thing that you said there that I think is really interesting is that fear is most likely always going to be present when you're creating change. And sometimes we can wait so long for the fear to pass or to work through the fear, or like we can sometimes even equate or, put that fear means it's the wrong decision. Well, if this was the right thing, then I'd feel, that I should be doing it. I wouldn't feel all of these worries or all of these what ifs. It's like, what ifs are always going to be there because your brain's role, like literally how your brain is wired, is to look for the negative. And if you are someone that has a dysregulated nervous system, or you've experienced any trauma in your past, or maybe you've made a decision where it didn't go really well or really right, your brain is going to be even like on overdrive with that. What could go wrong? Like, what is worst case scenario? And sometimes our brains can be very fucking dramatic because it wants us to stay the same. Our brain isn't there to keep us happy, it's there to keep us safe. And for our
Mm-hmm.
brain, it's like we find safety in the familiar. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime you're creating change, anytime you're making a big decision, there will always be fear present because you have a brain and because you're human. And that's how we're designed. That's what's meant to happen. But where people go wrong is they listen so much to the fear, and that means they live a life in fear. Every decision that you're making, everything that you're doing is now dictated by fear. And for me, I think a very big thing is like, I do not ever want to get to the end of my life, look back at all of the decisions I made and know that they came from a place of fear, because I just feel like that would be such a regretful, sinking feeling. And the other thing that you said there is like, if your worst case scenario is just going back to what you're currently doing, like, it's just a no-brainer. And I actually saw something, I don't even know where I saw it, and it said, it asked someone running a business, it's like, aren't you scared to be running a business? Like, aren't you fearful that it could all go wrong, or you're not going to make money, or what if it doesn't work out? And it said, worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, I go back to working a job for the next 60 years and I retire and I get my super, which is what I would have been doing anyway. So I might as well give it a red hot crack. And that reminded me so much of what you just said. And it's like, if you could just live by those words, then you're going to be like making better decisions for yourself, ones that open up so many windows and opportunities for you.
Yeah. You know what? Like, yeah, totally, totally. But like thinking back to when you said just before, that I don't know if I've always had this mindset of just like go, 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 like get what I want, like that sort of thing, or wherever I adopted that. But I think anyway, whether, someone at home listening, whether they have that mindset or they want to adopt it, they're like a go-getter, they want to do that. So I just like the thing that I thought about was that, look, you have your story, you've shared a bit about your story with us. And it's like, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's fair at all that sometimes like we get to experience these things, like these things that could be traumatic for us. It's not fair, but also I can see that you have not been a victim to your story, and you've actually so something that she's like a TV presenter, Robin Roberts. I don't know if you know her, but I watched like a masterclass on her. And she said, make your mess your message, especially for people that aspire to help others. Exactly why you went to the police force, because you wanted to help others that had like the same sort of experiences as you. Make your mess your message. And I just feel like you have not been a victim to your story. You've actually used your story in order to propel you forward in life and just to get what you want and help people and help yourself and like live your best life and help others live their best life. So I think that's actually probably a piece of advice as well, like of like rather than falling into like the lack side of it, it's like, don't be a victim to your story. Use it as your like your nos. You do Formula One, right? Nos.
100%.
Use
Like
it as the thing to
yeah,
propel you.
you love Formula One. I do love Formula One. I should have put that in my intro. It's like my thing. But like that is something that I actually talk about quite a lot. My personal opinion, and sometimes it can be quite triggering for people, but I say it in the most empowering way because it's my lived experience as well. It's like, you can be a victim to your circumstances. You can. Like, I was a child. I didn't deserve to experience trauma. I didn't deserve to see half the fucking shit that I saw and I experienced. And it sucks that that would be, etched in my mind and it has played a role in my adult life. However, I choose if I play the victim to that. And that is the big difference from me. I am a victim to what has happened, but I will never, ever play the victim to what has happened, because the only person that impacts is myself and my happiness and my well-being. And like, this is a bit of a personal share, but it's such a great example of that happening because me and my brother, so I have two siblings, one is a brother, and we grew up in the same environment. So we obviously experienced, the same trauma, obviously on different experiences because we're not the same person, but the same environment, same type of thing has going on. And my brother, unfortunately, he has grown up and he has utilized that to be a victim his whole life. Like the reason I don't have a good job is because of my childhood. The reason that I've cheated on my partner multiple times is because of my childhood. The reason that I now use alcohol and drugs is because of my childhood. Whereas for me, it's like my childhood happened, but the reason that I build a business that I love and I dedicate my life to helping others and I have a beautiful family and I have a life that I literally feels like fucking magic is because I chose to create that. And I never once said, I can't have a beautiful life because of my childhood, because that would be letting my experiences dictate my life. And that is just like, I would never want that for myself and I never want that for other people. So I think it's important to acknowledge if you have been through hardships in your life, shitty relationships, shitty jobs, like whatever it is, even a hard childhood, it's okay for you to grieve whatever part of you that missed out on happiness during that period. And I had to do that. I literally had to grieve my childhood. It was very upsetting. But then you get to decide, I don't want that to be the rest of my life. That can be my childhood, or that can be my relationship, or that experience. But I have full power over every single thing that happens next. And that's what I'm going to focus on. And I think that that mindset, and it's so incredibly healing as well. I feel like when people hear the sentence, like you can be a victim without playing the victim, and it feels very triggering, I think it should be empowering. Because if I got told, oh, you had a shit childhood, oh my God, now like you're not going to be able to go and achieve all of that, that's disempowering as fuck. I'd be like, what do you mean? Like that makes me feel shit. But if I say to someone, you can have all of those shit things happen to you, but you can be a confident person. You can be a person that runs a business that is super successful and has a relationship that feels amazing. That would give me so much hope if I was still in the midst of dealing with my trauma, for absolute sure. So yeah, I really love that you said that.
I love that so much. Yeah, absolutely. I resonate with you well as well on that of like, yeah, I think it is a very important part of the process of like grieving the childhood. If you have had things that, you know, in your childhood, if you got your story, like I think it's such an important process. And that comes with understanding like who you are. And that will actually help let go of a lot of things so that in order for you to gain clarity on what it is that you want. Because I know there's a lot of people, there's two types of well, there's probably more, but like two types of people that I see out there are people who don't know what the heck they want to do in life and they're just feeling really, really lost. And then there are people who have so many things that they want to do that they almost fall into this procrastination spiral and then they don't do any of it and they stay where they are. Curious to know. Well, it sounds like for you, you sort of followed your passions, right? Like you went into the police force, you followed your passion, you went out of the police force into nutrition coaching. What sort of things do you have for those people, like advice that you have for those people that either have so many things that won't start, so many things that they want to do and they just won't start, or they just have no clue and they feel like they need to have their life figured out right now? Because I feel like for
Yeah.
me, that would be like almost limiting already because you're just staying stuck in the same place.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it's funny how, like, even it can appear that I like knew what I wanted and I went after it. And I missed out such a big chunk of that story where I was completely fucking lost for a very big period of time. So between like being 18 and having my kids and joining the police, that was around 5 years. So
Mhm.
in that 5 years, like when I left school, I went to TAFE for a little bit because I thought I was going to do an admin certificate. And then I ended up quitting that because I got a job as a receptionist at like a mechanics, and I worked with this just me and this one mechanic, and it was actually such a vibe. It was like this dirty like mechanics. It was just me and him. Half the time I wasn't even doing admin because I was like holding up car parts for him, and I was just like, I just love that I got my $350 a week, and I was like, oh my God, I can like go have like a drink with my friend. Like I just thought I was living. And then I ended up leaving that job to do it was kind of like a receptionist role, but a little bit different in the city. And I thought I'd fucking made it. I was like, I'm going to be working like it was some like high rise building. It was so fancy. I got to wear fancy like clothes and high heels, which I ended up hating, by the way, because I like do not wear high heels. And I hated it so much. After I started, I was like, this is the worst fucking thing ever. But I fully like hyped it up like it was going to be the best thing ever. Then I fell pregnant. So then I stopped working. And then when my kids were, I can't even remember what age because I'm like really bad at remembering times of things. But I worked at a bistro for a little bit, just serving people their food. I worked at a bowls club in behind the reception. I went to uni and I changed what I was studying 2 different times whilst working a job and full-time uni. And I had the kids and they were really, really small. I literally changed my mind so many times. I did so many different jobs and I ended up hating. I was like, is this I started to feel like, is this my life? Like, am I going to do admin forever? And I didn't finish the degree because I wasn't really into it. I first started the degree. I was going to be a primary school teacher. I was going to be a primary school teacher. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't really love kids that much. Like, I love my kids, but I don't really love kids like a whole lot, like spending lots of time with them. And I was like, maybe I'll do a law degree. So then I switched and I was like, I was getting good, like, I was getting good grades. It was all going well. So I was like, I'm going to do a law degree. So I started doing the law degree and I finished some of that. And then I was like, I should join the police. Like, it was what I always wanted to do. It was like, this is my dream. So then I joined the police and I went through the whole process and I got in. So when I say, like, sometimes you have to take messy action, every single one of those weird roles or jobs or degrees that I didn't finish or certificates that I did finish but I didn't need, they all added a piece of the puzzle that I needed at that time, and they all led me to the place that I needed to be. So sometimes it's like, it doesn't have to make sense. You don't have to figure it out. Sometimes you just have to take like messy action and figure it out as you go. And sometimes you will find the answer by doing the thing. So when it looks like I was just like, oh, I love the police and I'm going to join, absolutely fucking not. There were so many things like in between that and the actual thing happening. And then I moved states, I moved my kids, I moved my family, I moved away from my whole actual like bigger family and moved down there. And the police, just to even add on to that story, like that was a big decision. My whole family was proud of me. They made me like a cake and did all the things and a whole send off, and it didn't turn out how I wanted it. And I think the reason that I want to add that in is because sometimes when you feel like, oh, I've done it, I've done the thing, I'm so proud, and then you realize it's not aligned or you don't like it or it doesn't go how you planned, it doesn't mean you're a failure. And that's something I really had to learn within myself, because I came down really hard on myself when it ended up not working out in the police. And I'm happy to go into that story if you want. But there can be a lot of failures along the way. There can be a lot of things that you try along the way. Now I've been running my business for nearly 4 or 5 years and it's the best thing that I've ever done. But you had to see all of those things that had to happen that didn't work out or that failed or that weren't that impressive or whatever it was to get to this point and be the person that I am now.
100%. And I feel like the key words there, well, the first key word is exploration. Like for both, whether you know, like you have so many things that you want to do or you don't, like you have no idea and you think you need your life figured out. Exploration. And also the other one, like living in the present moment. It's like, what do I need now? What do I need now? You're like stoked as like holding up these car parts and everything for people. You're not even thinking like this is going to be my forever job. You're just like, this is what I'm doing right now and this is what I'm getting, and I'm going to go out for drinks with my friends. And like, so I feel like that's what it is. It's like exploration, just like what is it, what's available right now that to do, and like what can you try and what can you just explore. I feel like you can explore your passions, you can just go into different things, you can learn different skills. It actually makes me laugh so much because thinking about like my timeline as you're telling about yours, like I've done so many things. I worked at a fish and chip shop, I've worked at like a butcher's where I was like I
Oh, I
never
went to
ever
the butcher. I went to the butcher too when I was like in the like early days of high school, and I thought it was like great. We got $10 and me and my bestie would go straight to the local IGA and buy lollies.
But it's like, how crazy is that? Like the things that like we do, you're never expecting to do that for the rest of your life. But also I learned so much from the butchers and I loved it. Like it was so much fun. I never ever thought I would do it. But also I did it for a little bit. And like I think everything that I've experienced and I've done, because same, like I feel like I've actually done like so many different types of jobs or different things in life as well to get me to the place that I am now. It's like there's like exactly like you say, the little parts of those that have built like that puzzle of where I am now. And I feel like that's literally the advice for people is like, you don't have to have things figured out now. You don't have to like stop. You don't need to procrastinate. Just try one thing, see if you like it. If you don't, cool. You've realized that you fucking hate it and you want to move into the next thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. And then maybe you decide that you like the one thing or whatever it is. Just keep trying. I feel like so many people have this mindset, and look, it's cool if you do for sure know what you want to like do for the rest of your life, but it's like we go into uni, we get the degree, and then for the next like what 60 or 50 years of our life we do the same thing. And like that's not the case for so many people. Like you don't have to have that mindset if you don't want to. You can chop and you can change and you can do whatever you want, and you can travel and then you can not, and then you can whatever it is that you want to do. But it's just like give yourself that permission just to explore. Like don't put so much pressure on yourself of like I have to do this or I have to do that or I have to, because same, like I didn't go to uni myself. Like I left school and I went straight over to France to try and score a job on super yachts, which I have no idea why or how.
But
But
also, like,
anyway.
how cool is that? I think that's fucking epic. Like hearing that, I'm like, go you. Like I love unique stories. I love that. And just like I want to hear, but I something you just said then I loved a whole lot as well is like the whole like you leave school, you go to uni, you work the job to you're 65, you retire. In that time, you've got engaged, you have the babies, whatever it is. And it's like we are so conditioned as like a society of like what the timeline is supposed to look like. And the thing that makes my heart so happy is I feel like this generation, like our generation, are really just breaking that mold of just like it can look different for everyone. And there is no set timeline of when you buy the car, buy the house, get the career. And I think that the like older generations, and I'm sure that they've been conditioned for that as well. So I'm not blaming them at all, but it's like changing your mind was seen as bad. Quitting your job was seen as bad. There was a time where like divorce was frowned on, and no matter how miserable you were in the relationship, you had to stay. It's like everything had to be very permanent. And I think now we are progressing so far past that. And I honestly think it's impressive when I hear people trying, like, and if you have the one career and you love it, I love that for you. And I've met people with that, and that's epic. But I also love to hear the stories of people that have just lived so many different lives within their one life. And I think there is so much magic in that, and we shouldn't shame that. And you shouldn't shame that within yourself. If you're the person that changes your mind a little bit more, or you want to explore a little bit more, can you just accept that part of you and just explore that without making it wrong or shaming yourself? So I think that's, yeah, that's a really important message too. Something I'm very passionate about.
But also like, okay, so thinking about like the places that you were in internally. So like you weren't like that, it didn't plan out as planned when you were in the police force, like you said, and like like when you were doing the car parts and like all of these jobs, like it wasn't necessarily your end goal, but also like you were still coming off the other side of like trying to figure out yourself, and like you had kids and you were trying to figure out your goals and how you wanted to strive for all of these things. And like fast forwarding to now, where you are in life now, and that you said in the beginning, like everything's flowing so nicely and that you absolutely love what you do and you're just so happy where it is. What sort of things do you think has contributed to that, like internally? Like you say, you're a mindset coach as well. What sort of things have you done that has contributed to who you are now, where you are now?
Yeah. So definitely the way in which I left the police, I think contributed to it a lot. So with my exit from the police, there is things that unfortunately I'm not allowed to legally talk about because it went to court. It was a whole thing. It went for a year. But what I will say is that in itself was quite a traumatic experience for me, and things that had happened to me definitely shouldn't have happened to me. And probably again why I'm so passionate about women being confident in who they are and being able to speak up about things and not people please, because yeah, so many different reasons. But basically during that time, I got so it's hard to kind of explain. Something happened in the police, and then a year I stayed in the police after that incident, and I got really badly bullied. And the police is very much, unfortunately, in my experience, and not to say that's everyone's experience, absolutely not. But my experience was it was very boys club, and the culture was not very good. I don't know if it was just the station I was at or what it was, but I was treated really poorly for a 12-month period. And that's every day going to work, being treated not very nicely. So you can imagine the toll that that takes on a person. And I was basically just a shell of myself. Like even when I said I've been kind of insecure and stuff like that, I feel like to my core, my personality has always been quite bubbly or chatty or whatever it is. That was completely gone. And by the time I had left the police, I was diagnosed with severe depression, severe anxiety. I was suicidal at that time. I didn't want to get out of bed. I was having really bad thoughts. Trigger warning as well. I don't know if you want to put that on there, but like I was having really bad thoughts. It was a really dark time. And I had never experienced anything like that in my entire life, like that level of mental health. And I think from that moment, it was just like, I need to put myself first. I can't stay in a job just because it looks good and it means I'm successful and it means I have stability, because how stable is something that impacts your mental health in such a negative way? And at the time of wanting to leave the police, I actually wasn't that supported by my family. They thought I was making a huge mistake and I was leaving the most stable, best thing that I had created in my life, which was a really good career that it looked like from the outside. So I had to make that decision basically a lot on my own. I was in a newer relationship at that time, so he couldn't really tell me what to do or not to do because we're quite new. He supported me, But I remember being very emotional, like crying on the floor, just like, I don't know what to do. Should I stay because it's a good career, but I'm so unhappy and I'm miserable. And I ultimately trusted myself that this is not what I'm meant to be doing. This is not what my life is meant to look like. And I left and I decided to start my nutrition coaching business because at that time the only thing that was making me happy was focusing on my fitness and my nutrition and all of those different things. So I was like, I want to help other women do that. I'd started my Instagram page maybe 6 months prior. I was building a really cool little community, and I ultimately decided to do that. And I think it was a combination of those two things, seeing myself at my darkest and my lowest and knowing that that's not what I want for myself for the rest of my life. And also starting a business that when you start a business, you will learn very quickly. It is like a fast track to personal development. You learn so much about yourself. Like every little wound that you could possibly have is like, here it is. Like it's like in the fucking spotlight. So it's like a combination of the two. And I really, from that moment, went on a massive kind of self-development, personal development, connecting back to myself, understanding myself. And it wasn't until then, until I started my business and left the police, that I actually dove into my childhood trauma and healing from my childhood trauma. And like, I'd never looked at that before, ever. I was just kind of like, no, I'm fine. That doesn't affect me. Lol, it clearly does.
Yeah.
And I went on this whole, like, I would say 2 to 3 years of working on my own mind, of connecting back to myself, of learning about myself, mostly for me, but so I could be a good coach, so I could build a business that was successful. Like, it was a combination of the two. And I really do, like, when people talk about their business, like, I'm like, I sometimes say, and it sounds dramatic, but I think my business saved my life because it gave me something incredibly purposeful to work towards, to focus on, to look forward to. I genuinely loved it so much, but it also opened me up to wanting to develop myself and work on myself as a human being. And it changed everything for me. Like, I am a completely different person from the day of leaving the police to the day of me sitting here now. I am a completely different person, and I do owe it to my business and making that one decision to put myself first, even when anyone else didn't get it or didn't see it or thought it was the worst decision that I was ever making.
And you know what, like even seeing like you online and just like even being like in the masterminds and things that I have with you, like I know that your life is not a highlight reel. Like the things that you put online is not a highlight reel. Like it's so genuine and it's so authentic, and I think it's so beautiful. Like I see the things that you're doing with your kids and like the time that you get, and like this life that you have created for yourself looks so beautiful. And I know that there's been lots of work that you have done behind the scenes for it, and I love your story so much. And yeah, so I thank you so much for sharing your story. It's such an inspiration, and I know that so many people are gonna gain so much from the story, and hopefully people start to understand like, oh, okay, like I'm actually not that like happy, or I'm okay at my job, but like maybe I want to try something else, or maybe I want to explore something else, or maybe I'm not even job, maybe I want to explore a different hobby or whatever it might be. And I think that you've created that inspiration for them. So I thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today and sharing all of that with us.
You are so welcome. I hope everyone takes that away from that because, yeah, you don't have to wait for things to be hard and miserable. I know my story is like, this was really hard. But when I finished nutrition coaching, like my business was super successful with nutrition coaching. It was amazing. It just didn't feel super aligned. So you can always also make decisions where you change something in your life, even though it's not bad. You don't have to wait for things to go to shit or be bad to change your mind. So, yeah, I love that so much. And I hope that people can take something away, or if it's just like go and do the thing, whatever the thing is, even if it doesn't make sense right now, just give it a crack and trust yourself.
100%. Wow. Thank you so much, Ash, for coming on. Please let us know where we can find you.
Oh yeah. What is my Instagram name? I think it's just my name. I can never remember if I've called it Ash Badman or Ashley Badman, but it's one of the two. I think it's Ash Badman underscore on my Instagram, and that is where you can find me.
Yeah, I just double checked it is. You're
Thank
sending
you.
us to the right place.
I love how you have to check my Instagram name.
You're like, where can
Lol.
we find you? And you're like, send to the wrong place. And they're like, well, now I don't know what to
Welcome
do.
to my chaotic mind.
No, but I'll also tag everything into the show notes and everything as well.
Cool.
Once again, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star rate and review, because this helps this podcast get up in the algorithm so we can share the messages far and wide. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all next week.